Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jeff, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite cards, the American Express Gold Card. I'll show you that right here. You can see that nice gold color and a metal finish. So it's a really pretty card, but let's get right into the video here. This card comes with a $325 annual fee and $424 of annual credits. These credits are broken down into $120 worth of Uber, $120 worth of dining, $100 worth of Resi, and $84 worth of Dunkin'. The Uber credit can be used for ride shares or Uber Eats, $10 a month. And then the same with the dining credit, that can be used at Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, and Five Guys, just to name a couple of them, again at $10 per month. The Resi credit is $50 every 6 months. If you're not familiar with Resi, that's Amex's restaurant reservation platform. Now, you don't have to book a reservation at one of these restaurants. You just need to go to one of these restaurants and pay your bill with your gold card to get that $50 off. And then the Dunkin' credit is broken up into $7 per month increments. For somebody like me, these credits are really easy to use. For the most part, I take my lunch to work with me, but on the days that I don't, I'll just Uber Eats or Grubhub my lunch that day. So it's a really easy way to put money back in my pocket. And then for the Resi credit, I'll use that while we're traveling. It's a good way to still be able to go to like nice restaurants as a family, but not necessarily spend an arm and a leg, right? So I do get a lot of value out of that one. And then the Dunkin' credit, I've probably spent 2 or 3 times. That $84 at Dunkin' just because there's a ton in my metro area. So it's just an easy way to like reduce my Dunkin' bill. But I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to use all of the credits necessarily to like still get a ton of value or to like offset the annual fee or whatever. Um, because I think the points that you're able to earn on this card could far surpass the annual fee. And that's where I get the most value out of this card. So speaking of which, we'll talk about the spending perks next. To include 4x at U.S. supermarkets and 4x at dining, so any restaurant. Uh, I got a family of four, so my grocery bill is pretty high any given month. I'd say somewhere in the like $1,000 a month range, right? Could be a little less, could be a little more, just whatever it is. And then 4x at dining. This can range from coffee shops to fast food places to chain restaurants to like nice high end restaurants, right? So pretty much any restaurant you'll get 4x back. So if you spend a lot of money at either one of those two categories, you can get a ton of points back that you can use to redeem for travel. You get 3x back with airlines, which is a pretty cool perk, I think. A lot of co-branded airline cards will only get you 3x back when you book like a ticket on with that airline. But with Amex, you can get 3x transferable points, right? So you're not locked into necessarily like one airline. You can use those points to transfer to a different airline or to a hotel or something like that. You also get 2x on prepaid hotels on the Amex Travel Portal, and then 1x on everything else. So this card necessarily isn't a catch-all card, but as long as you spend on the top two categories, you can earn a ton of points. And then the last thing I want to talk about in this section of the video is the fact that this is a charge card and not a credit card, right? So if you watch my last video, I talked about the Capital One Venture X. That's a credit card, right? I have a preset spending limit. I can't surpass that spending limit. I can surpass that spending limit on my gold card because there is no limit. The difference is I have to pay my statement balance off in full, right? With a charge card, your minimum payment is your statement balance. With a credit card, your minimum payment is a fraction of your statement balance, right? So I think it's really cool that Amex does that with these cards because it forces you to have good financial habits, right? Because if you're playing the credit card game and you're not paying your statement balance off in full each and every month, right? If you're paying interest, then you're losing the game. Okay, so that's rule number one: pay your statement balance off in full each and every month. Do not pay interest. Okay, and then talking about the points, what are they worth? Well, it depends on your welcome offer. The welcome offer can vary. I typically see somewhere between 60 and 100,000 points, and that requires $6,000 worth of spend over that time frame, over 6 months. Um, but yeah, it's not that hard to achieve, right? $1,000 a month, depending on your spending habits. You don't necessarily have to go above and beyond your budget or your means to hit that, right? If you can spend $1,000 a month on things like your gas, your utilities, your car insurance bill, your phone bill, whatever groceries or dining, like whatever you spend on, if you can transfer that spend onto this card, you can easily hit this welcome offer in most cases. And I'll do a quick math example here for you. Break out my fancy calculator, right? But let's say you get that 75,000 point offer right there, like you see, and then let's say you earn like 12,000 points with that spend over the 6K, right? So 75,000 plus 12,000 equals 87,000 MR points, okay? And then if you're able to transfer these points to partners to get outsized value, which I'll talk about in the next slide, um, that's where you're going to get the most money, the most value for your points, right? So let's say you're able to do that. Let's say you're able to transfer the airlines and get 2 cents a point or something like that. Okay, that's going to be worth over $1,700. Okay, and one way to measure your return on spend would be to divide by your minimum spend threshold. Okay, and in that scenario, you get almost 30% back return on spend for 6 grand. Okay, cool. And another way to look at it is what is your average cent per point, right? So if you have this card for a long time and you average around 2 cents a point with your Amex points, then every time you spend on it, you get 8 cents, right? So if you're going to the grocery store or you're going out to eat and you get that 4x back, if you get those points and use that for 2 cents a point, you get 8% back every time you go out. Okay, it's a good way to measure. It's a good way to measure your return every time you use the card. So, and then speaking of the transfer partners, I've listed a few of them here for you. This isn't all of them. It's just some of the bigger ones. I've personally I've sent points over to Air France and KLM, over the Delta, and then Hilton and Marriott. I've sent MR points to all four of those companies. Um, Air France, I'll talk about that in a different video of like kind of the cheat code for how I use my points. But currently, my strategy is booking with Hilton, or transferring with Hilton, I should say, because of that 1 to 2 uh, transfer ratio, right? So if if the if the stay if my hotel stay costs me 100, let's say 100,000 points, for example, but I use MR points, then it only costs me 50,000 points to book it, right? So to me, that's a really efficient way to use them in a really effective way to like take care of the other part of travel, right? Because you gotta be able to fly somewhere, but you also need a place to stay. So I do like Amex's travel partners. I think they're pretty strong, and you know, for me, they're some of the best in the game, and why I value my Amex points so highly, right? So, but next, let's talk about like who this card is made for, right? And example one, somebody like me, somebody that lives in the city and has a family of four, has a mid to high grocery bill each and every month. So my wife and I, we really need the most back from our spend, right? So every time we go to the grocery store or to the dining or wherever, right? Like we just need the most back from what we spend organically, and then we need enough points to be able to travel with our 2 kids. Okay, but I don't think it's just built for families. I think it's a really good family card, but I do think if you're single or maybe a couple, this would be a really good option too, because maybe you don't necessarily have a high grocery bill, but maybe you go out to dinner 2 or 3 or 4 times a month or a week even, and that's going to rack up. That bill's going to rack up pretty quickly. But getting 4x on dining is a really good perk, to where you can book international trips or luxurious hotel stays. Um, so this is a really important card for me. If it's a really important card to you, I'll put my link, my referral link, in the description to this video. So if it's a card you're interested in, definitely check it out. Definitely helps the channel. So, but my final thoughts include, this card's a daily driver. This is something that you can use basically on a daily basis, but at the very least several times a week, right? And it's an elite earner. It's a core card to have in your setup. Um, it does have the $325 annual fee, but with the credits that are on it, and then the amount of points that you can earn, the annual fee is almost nothing. I do think it's designed for kind of bigger city living, right? Maybe some metro area, but I got it when I was living in Montana, so I think you can still use it pretty much anywhere you are, at least in the U.S. Maybe not in a really small town with very limited options, right? But for the most part, this card could be made for anybody. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, something that I benefited from directly, was the fact that American Express waives annual fees for their credit cards. So while I was active duty, I got this card, and Amex waived my annual fee for me for the years that I was active. So if you're active duty and you're watching this, and you're interested in this card, definitely check it out, because Amex will hook you up and will waive your annual fee. But that's going to do it for this one. Appreciate you guys' time. I hope to see you in the next one, where I'll probably talk about some of my redemption strategies and how I use my points and stuff like that. So thanks for your time, and take care, okay?